Them motherfuckers is in every organization. But when you watch when this shit come out, because somebody said, Rob, we need to know the organizations they running today. They've infiltrated every motherfucking lodge, every religious organization, every political organization, every educational organization, especially those that they call higher learning. Because by keeping you out of the schools of higher learning, they can keep you under the income umbrella. The income umbrella was designed that we never come above a certain socioeconomic level. This is why they bombed Black Wall Street. This is why they bombed Rosewood. Was a whole fucking Black Wall Street down there. They trying to tell us it's about black man whistle or raped some white girl and then they went on a murderous mob rage and burnt down the city or some shit. That's bullshit. They was economically self-sufficient in Rosewood just like they were in Black Wall Street in Tulsa. All they did was the same thing. They met up with the motherfuckers from Tulsa, where we call Atlanta today, when they left. Because they understood the nature of warfare. And the nature of warfare is anytime your enemy run you out of somewhere, find where your allies at. This is why so many Floridians and Oklahomans in goddamn Atlanta. If they start tracing their bloodline, they're going to be fucked up. They was organic. They didn't want the tribes flourishing. We was in a warlock. That's why all of the money is fiat. Ain't backed by nothing.
Yeah.
It's monopoly money.
It's all fake currency. Yeah. It's literally faith. People just believe in it. That's what full faith and credit means.
I ain't got no faith in credit because credit equals motherfucking debt and debt is slavery.
Yeah. Work employment is slavery, even by definition.
Yeah. Well, they have a book that give you legal terms. It was called Ipsum Sui Juris. And the term, the difference between an employee and a slave is wages. That's the difference. That's what the whole idea or concept of minimum wage came from. Anybody make less than minimum wage is automatically recognized as involuntary servitude or slavery. Right? That's why you have to be a child to get paid less than minimum wage. And they trick the motherfucking servers in some of these restaurants and bars because your tips don't post account.
Yeah.
Melchizedek is a title. It means my angel, the just one. That's Malachi York. Sui juris, that means, yep, of the rightful ones, or of the rightful jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But the book is like Sui Juris Ipsum or Ipso Sui Juris. But this was the terms in early American law. See, a lot of us haven't read none of the law books, so we don't know that a lot of times in colonial America, the lawyer was the chief of a clan that came in and he didn't even argue the case. He argued the standing of the court in order to hear the case. That's why a lot of the early American law books are only at certain law libraries, like the one in D.C. or the one in the state capitol. Right? When you start going back to early American law, go back to cases between the Confederacy and the Union, where they were suing each other. And it was natives with feathers that was overseeing the court as the judge. We don't know nothing about that because we don't have access to those books unless we go to those law libraries. And those law libraries, you have to be a barrister to get in. And I just like telling my people where they had their shit at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it. I've really been getting into law recently, studying syntax, obviously, looking into the Constitution and all the American contracts and realizing that they don't say anything because their format is adverb verb syntax. So, like, when you read it, it's actually just babbling.
Yeah, well, the first thing that you have to understand is something in law called style and title. That's how it got to be wrote. If it's not written according to the proper style and title, It's not the person they claiming to be. And that's how I discovered the fraud. Because the Constitution of Michigan, it had right in there the style and title. And then when I pulled out my court documents, nothing was in the style and title proper. That immediately,
Exactly.
that's
That's how
immediately
most of them are.
identifying the fraud at its source.
And fraud negates all contracts. So at the moment there's one piece
Yep.
of fraud, it's null and void.
Yep. And that's the same thing I use to cancel all of the contracts from the position of a chief that's the de jure, right? Non-performance and fraud. Because they never honored any of the contracts they signed, and they signed them all under false pretense.
Mm-hmm. And they're complicit in
Right.
the
And
fraud,
that's
so
why I tell
they got to be held
everybody that
accountable
if you don't
too.
want to be party to the fraud, you have to abandon the contract. And the only way to abandon the contract is anything that uses your straw man name, don't participate in it. So, like your job, you had to do a W-4 or W-2 or 1099. All of those is contracts tying you to the system. Soon as you realize the fraud,
Mm-hmm.
you abandon the contract. That way, that the fraudster that wrote the contract trying to enforce it gets caught red-handed trying to enforce the contract, and that immediately gives you everything that he stole from you back because you didn't know you was in the fraud. The defense in the court of law is called the abandonment defense. Me and you could be going somewhere together. I don't
Yeah,
know what
right
you
of
finna
rescission.
do, but right before you go in the store, you about to rob. You say, "Hey, bro, I'm about to rob this store." I said, "Man, I don't want no parts of that." I go home, you go rob the store. They arrest us both. Yeah, I ain't got nothing to say. You ain't got nothing to say. My lawyer come up, be like, "Look, man, I told that motherfucker I want nothing to do with it." He said, "Cool." I went home. He went and did what he did, and then your lawyer going, "Man, my man ain't had nothing to do with it. He went home. I went and robbed the store." Right? Then your lawyer gonna talk to my lawyer and say, "Hey, well, what is this called? This is called the abandonment defense for your client, but for my client, we have to sever the case, or that's gonna make him look worse." Right? So that's how you strategize in law.
Mm-hmm.
The abandonment defense is to protect the person who doesn't know they're being used as a cat's paw to crime to give him an out. Somebody's finna bring you into a
Yeah.
criminal act and you don't want to participate. You got to have a way, once you discover there's criminal activity going on, this is the abandonment clause of the act. Once you realize what's going on, I don't want nothing to do with that. Right? And you did. Yeah,
Yeah, right of
you got
rescission.
to know how to protect yourself. Yep.
What you do you know anything about the laws of
Boxing?
boxing? Yeah, like it's like an unspoken agreement. Like anything in a box technically doesn't exist
Oh no, that's a construct,
when
right?
it's on
So
paper.
you're talking about the well, at the top where it put the box around the defendant and the yeah. Those are called
Yeah.
I forgot the name for them to put them in there. So basically, what it is when they take you into court, you're only a thumb drive. They don't really have anything to
Mm-hmm.
do with anything going on in the courtroom. Everybody's a barrister but you. Automatic conflict of interest. Not just a conflict of interest, but it's a irreconcilable conflict of interest because anybody that comes to defend your interest has to be a bar member. And all bar members' first motherfucking
Yeah.
fiduciary duty is to the bar, which overrides any duty to you. So now you're caught in a conundrum. You
Yeah. They
can't.
all
There's
work for the
nothing you
crown.
can do to be part and party to this action because there's no way you can participate in this action without a bar member.
Yeah. Anytime anyone gets signed over to jail, your lawyer or your attorney has to sign off on you to even go. Them, the judge, and the clerk. And the clerk has the
Yeah,
most
the
power out
clerk
of
is a
every
bar
person.
member too, and the clerk is the one who holds the lien because it's a lien in the courtroom every time you go in there. That's what your file is. Your file has a lien in it, and that lien in
Yes.
that file, you are the thumb drive or the evidence. That's all you is evidence in court. A thumb drive. Well, I got 9 seconds remaining. I'm probably gonna come back on for an hour. So if y'all watching, now log.
That are confused by the things that you say. However, I recognize, and a lot of others recognize your mission and purpose. And so tonight, what we want to do is do something a little different, because folks are used to you know, telling us what Big Mama is saying, like right now, or what's happening on the land, what to look at, you know, what has ended, what contracts are over. But you know, everyone has a beginning, and some folks think, you know, well, he just came out of nowhere, or you know, what gives him the right or authority, and he says I too much. You know, we talked about that. So tonight, I want you to just, whatever, you know, in the realm of spirit of truth and whatever you can release about Rod Hayes, because sometimes the fact that we don't understand or understand where a person has come from to get them to the place, what qualifies them to do and stand on the, you know, on the square or the soapbox or whatever the position one takes, until you walk the mile in someone else's shoes, you really don't have a real understanding of what it took to get them to where they are. So tonight, let's delve into, you know, we're talking about, you know, we talked a little bit about your struggles, because, you know, and what, you know, even to the point of what your family thought. So wherever you want to start, so I can shut up, because they know Dr. Talk. Well, I'll interject when I have to.
Okay. So one of the things you brought up is proponents and opponents, the ones who understand the message and know what I'm doing, and those who are confused by it and is in opposition. You need both sides, right? And we're not operating from man's law right now. We're operating from the position of what's called universal law, which is the highest law we can ascertain in the 3D world. Right. So when we talk about contract law, we're talking about the laws of men, that which is codified and recorded in books, being pushed by barristers in order to enforce the jurisdiction of the royal government onto the people. Right. At some point, we have to figure out how to get from under the oppressive yoke of the corporation. The corporation is a straw man. It's a legal fiction. So it has no compassion for the people, right? Now, early on, I knew something was wrong when I was little, as a child. But I didn't know how to tell people what I seen, but I knew that I had some kind of psychic abilities where I could foretell the future. Like, it was very common as an adolescent that I would hear a voice give me a number in my head, and I'd go get a number to my mama when we be hungry on our knuckles, and she'd hit the number and go grocery shopping. Right? That talent or that skill was cut off by Big Mama from the adults exploiting the child. The innocence of the child has to be protected by the adults that's harvesting that skill. So they would make promises that I'm going to do this if I hit the number, if you give me the number, and then I give them the number, and they never follow through. And that's repugnant to the laws of nature and universal law. So the only way that Big Mama can stop the exploitation is she has to turn off that faculty. So now I couldn't give you a good number if I wanted to, right? Because the exploitation as a child for the number, which was enriching people, it was getting them out of poverty conditions, was exploited by the adults, writing the child off as being insignificant when the children are the future to our nations. So under the matriarchal structure, so you remember Ty saying that he knew when I was talking about raising the matriarchy what I was on? This is what he's talking about. Under the matriarchal structure, the men in patriarchy believe it means do the same thing as patriarchy with women in charge. That's not what it means. What it means is when we raise children, we raise the children to be different from the parent in a better way. All of the matriarchal mothers agree that if we raise children correctly, we have competent and functional adults. But when the society is intervening in the rearing of the child in order to exploit them for the workforce and for their militaries to fight their wars, the works of the mothers become 100 times harder and it becomes 10 times less effective, right? So she's doing 100 times the work for 1/10 of the benefit that if the society would honor the position of the mother in rearing the child properly according to the law, universal law. We don't care about man's law. Man's law is irrelevant to us. Universal law, Big Mama's rules, is universal law. And she speaks to all of us, but all of us can't hear her. Right? Some of us been listening to it for so many past lives, it's second nature. Right? And you can see the energy move from godmother to godmother as they give you instructions on your life path if you know what you're looking for. I knew that at an early age what I was looking for, but I couldn't understand why I was searching for it. And every time I'd be looking for an answer, my mama used to always say the same thing. Don't try to figure it out. Just keep asking the Lord for wisdom. If you get the wisdom, you can solve the problems. But if you don't pursue the wisdom, you will be submerged in the problem. The problem will overtake you. Right? So we follow the universal law, the path of least resistance. And the corporation follows man's law and the law of the jungle. I'm gonna make you do what I want you to do, and then I'm gonna contract you to it to hold you in my favor. That's slavery. And as long as we not cognizant of what does it mean to have to file an application for a job, right? When you look at what an application really is, it's a negotiable instrument between the person that's willing to give their energy up to the person who knows how to benefit from the energy, and the person who's giving their energy up is negotiating the rate of production of energy that they can give to the corporate jurisdiction that they are signing the application with. So it's basically an exchange of economics or currency for labor expended, right? It's a basic math problem. Now, the laborer is unaware of the calculating instrument of the labor. So he don't really know his true worth. He don't know that the corporations measure the jobs by physical exertion and calories burned per hour, the same way as they would say this is how many miles to the gallon that this car can get. So they know how much output for the type of job that you're applying for that you're worth. And you know they're going to give you about 1% of the value of that to them. Right? When they should be giving you a functional wage, they created a system called inflation that can constantly steal from you by changing the rate by which your energy can be transferred and used to your benefit. It has nothing to do with social economics because you can have an economy with no inflation. Inflation is based off a debt concept of banking called fractional reserve banking, where you start using the debt as the collateral for the currency, which is a double debt, right? When you double down on the debt, it's twice as hard to get from under it. You know, it's like you got a house note that balloons and becomes double what it was. It becomes twice as hard to pay it as it was before, right? It's all in fractional reserve banking and how they put the money system together to always take your energy and never give you the value of the energy they took. We are under the impression that we just trying to make a living in this life. We don't want the struggle that comes with making a living being absorbed by inflation. So now what we was able to take care of a family on $5 an hour in the 60s, you can't take care of a family on $50 an hour in 2022. The price of gas alone is enough to suck your bank account dry, right? So in the whole process now, we trying to figure out how to get the people properly treated in order for Earth to advance to a golden age. This is the whole motivation Because in the golden age, this is the sun cycle coming in on the 24,000 year galactic clock, reference Charles Mosley Bay Clock of Destiny. When the galactic clock switches over from the silver lunar cycle to the golden moon cycle, we're going to go from temperatures increasing by up to 20 degrees around the world, right? Because now the things that's in secret has to be smoked out, so to speak. You know how they used to catch a rabbit in a hole and then they smoke one end, make it run out the other one? So right now, the sun cycle got the humans in the process of smoking out the devils that was holding us under those debt systems. And these systems, in turn, was oppressing the people so subtly until the people no longer knew they were being oppressed, misused, abused, and exploited. We heard about the 800,000 children a year go missing in the United States alone, right? That's almost 1 million children go missing every year, but we don't know about the cases. We might know about in the forefront of the media, they might showcase 100 cases throughout the year at the most across the land, and that's all locally. So we're not really getting the full impact of the tyranny taking place with the human trafficking and child exploitation. So we had to figure out how to reapply universal law, and that's not easy as it sounds, because you have to go through the dark night of the soul. That's the misery, right? That's
so with you though, as a young star, a child, had feelings. Would you call these feelings maybe remembrances coming back from an earlier cycle here, or just knowing what or remembering the assignment that you came here to fulfill at a very young age, that you knew that you came to do what you're doing now?
Well, it came a point where I ignored the spiritual message because I'm a child, and they were overwhelming for me as a child. When I got to be a teenager, I got so good at blocking the messages out that they didn't bother me like they used to at earlier ages. And when I was blocking the messages out, it was pushing me more into what we term today street life, because the lifestyles in the hood, in the inner cities, is a very, very excellent distraction from hearing the spirit talk to you. But once you get heavy enough in the streets, you're going to lean back to spirit to guide you out of that condition. And you'll start opening back up to spirit again. That's why a lot of preachers is ex-pimps, prostitutes, and drug dealers, because spirit was able to guide them out of that destructive lifestyle and point them in a direction where they can be functional in this dysfunctional society. Most of us not even aware that the society is dysfunctional, right? So those things were overwhelming to me as a child. I had some experience as a child that I didn't understand them, but I didn't have no fear, and they were so perplexing to me.
Could you give us an example of maybe one, or of maybe something we would look at as spiritual or
yeah? So
paranormal?
There was an instance in elementary school where we was playing like dodgeball or something, and the ball was in the air, and I jumped to get the ball, continued to rise up until my body hit the ground. As soon as my body hit the ground, I snapped back in my body.
So you kind of blinked. You kind of it kind of blinked you out a bit. So you were saying that you went up to get the ball. Could you repeat that? Because it kind of, we didn't get it all.
Right. So as I jumped for the ball, my spirit separated from my body.
Okay.
And I could see the back of my head under me while my body is falling down face first to the concrete. Oh. And as soon as my body hit the ground, my spirit snapped back in my body. And I think that was more painful than the contact with the concrete. I know it was more startling,
the going back into your body was painful.
Yeah, because
Now,
it was done under the impact of a fall.
do you think you left your body as a because I think about people, like say people fall, somebody falling over a cliff. I feel like a lot of those people leave their bodies before they hit the ground because they already know, the bottom, that they're gonna die, and so they exit out. We kind of think they might have had a lot of pain, but it might just be the vessel that gets, that the fact that you see imminent death, or did your body see that you were going to hit face first?
Death never came into the equation, to my understanding, at that time.
Oh, but is that possible that was the reason of the separation?
No, I think that the reason for the separation is that I wasn't aware of how spiritually connected I was to the physical. I didn't identify enough with the body to bond properly with the physical form. So the euphoria of the jump gave me the awareness of the higher consciousness self that's able to see the lower vibrational self. So I just believe that I zoomed out perceptually to my higher consciousness in order to review what I was doing at the time as a means of trying to comprehend the body and spirit being projected into the body. And that was like, they didn't have this term in science until recently in epigenetics. Epigenetics gives you the understanding of how the spirit is projected into the body. So epigenetics and the remote position of where the spirit is projecting from into the body becomes the understanding that matches the experience. Right? So they say hindsight is 20/20. Like a lot of the stuff about like the imposters on the land that don't belong here, the society not running how we used to do it in ancient times, that's genetic memory. That's from past life recall. Like I can go back in my mind and I'll be right back in New Orleans in the nightlife in 1901. Right? And I can remember conversations I had with people. But when you tell people this, the first thing come to their mind is he's going through a schizoid episode. He's losing his mind. Right? But if you're not psychic or not aware of your psychic talent and how to use it, psychic experience sounds irrational to a rational mind. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call it the intoxication of the sages, or the madness of the adepts. When you go through this acute awareness that the average person can't assimilate from their perception of consciousness. So you trying to explain quantum physics to a 3-year-old that haven't even learned the alphabet yet. It's very difficult, but it's not impossible.
Excuse me. Have we been dumbed down and deliberately dumbed down? I know we have, but deliberately disconnected from our higher self and had that replaced by saviors and things that we need to look externally to.
The savior complexes, the God complexes, looking outside of yourself for divinity prevents you from looking inside for the inner glow, the inner divinity. Like the last dragon finally realizing he the master at the point of his own destruction. Right? At that point, when he realized he's at his life's end, that's when they say in the mystery system, it said like this: he who dies yet lives finds eternal life, because you find the secret of life. And the secret of life is that it ain't no secret, you're just supposed to live it. Soon as you start trying to micromanage everybody else's life, you can't live your own life. You live in the micromanager's job of being an agent in the matrix. The dumbing down was done to us through the same principles of AA. It's applied in a 12-step educational program designed to separate you from thinking so that you can learn to embrace being given orders. Right? But the ones that's unruly in the educational system, because I seen through it in the 5th grade, I seen exploitation written all over the educational system. So I was sparsely participating. I wasn't getting no A's in school. I wasn't getting no B's in school. I was C student. Sometimes D's and E's. Because most of the time I just didn't do the work. And most of the time I didn't do the work because I something didn't feel right, and I didn't know how to tell nobody that the system that I'm in don't feel right. So I stopped participating.
Wow.
So the result of that, I ended up being kicked out of school in the first semester of the 10th grade for bringing brass knuckles to school. Right? And I never had to get caught with them. But I didn't care. I didn't want to be there anyway. So to me, they was doing me the favor. Right? So when I was understanding what the school system was later doing psychological research, it's a combination of a Pavlovian response system and a B.F. Skinner's Skinner box, both used for indoctrination purposes and heavily researched under MK Ultra.
Now I know about Pavlov, that Pavlov's dog, and so that. But what is the B.F. Skinner box?
Well, the Skinner box is used to issue out punishment as opposed to treats in order to compel you to get out of a box. The punishment is the erroneous teaching pattern of the educator. It becomes torturous to remain in the class, but you have to be on your best behavior lest you incur the zap of the Skinner box, which is repackaged as the authority of the school will discipline you. Right? So the good teachers is the ones that the class always goes by too fast and you actually learn something. Their teaching career is going to be short. Mm-hmm. There's some kind of way the school is going to get rid of them or going to overwork them where they become ineffective because they are effective. So when you look at the punishment in the Skinner box and you look at the system of the bell, instead of going to the treat, you escaping the punishment. And by jumping between escaping punishment and being trapped in punishment, you learn to accept the punishing system of the workforce.
So that's in other words, okay, training.